Wednesday, January 12th, 2011. I'm Rim, and this is Geeknights. Tonight, Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Let's do this.
So, a little context, if I may. This episode was actually recorded quite some time ago, and we kind of kept it in the hopper until we had an occasion to use it, and that occasion has come upon us as by the time you're listening to this, Scott and I are probably on our ways to MagFest 9, and thus we wouldn't be around to do a show. So some of the news is a little out of date, and we may or may not have used one of these things of the day again. I can't recall, but it's a good show, and we talk about Roger Rabbit with a guest. No, there's a show that we watched a long time ago that I'd forgotten about until randomly a little while ago.
I did not forget about it.
Well, I forgot about it in the way you forget about old anime. You watch it, and then you just don't, it doesn't come to mind. It's not like I'd be walking down the street and suddenly, oh shit, Mahout Sky Tie.
It's not a show that really anyone talks about, but it was, it's in that same category as El Hazard, I think.
Yeah. Well, it was just, I remember it being really cute, and I remember the crew. We all watched it.
It's actually similar to El Hazard also structurally, in that there's an OAV and a TV series.
Is it similar in the same way that the OAV is the only good part and the TV series is terrible?
I don't remember the TV series, because,
I never watched it.
Yeah, so anyway, we're going to rewatch this, and it's going to be a show.
Yeah, it's funny because I barely, I remembered the anime club fighting in the beginning, and it was about magic, and I remember this one scene where she's dumb, and she makes this rune, half on the roof and half on the ground.
I remembered that aliens with the black ball that rolls down the street.
Yep.
But that's the,
Of course, there's the similar weird stuff in Gatekeepers.
True.
With the red hats.
Yep.
But once I saw that opener with the little dot, the lot, suddenly everything clicked together. I was like, oh yeah, this show. And it says something, sometimes I rewatch an anime and I'm not bored. It's more like I remember what's happening and I'm like, I got to go through all this shit again. But some shows, like Ghost in the Shell, watching them again, it's like, oh man, I remember this. This is awesome. This show gives me more the latter than the former.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see.
I only watched one episode again, so I got 5 more OAV episodes.
I watched the opener.
I'm not gonna rewatch the TV.
I'm not even. I don't know if we ever did watch.
I don't know if the TV's good, bad, different. I don't think I ever watched it.
Well, as a warning, El Hazard, the TV and the second OAV, not worth watching. The TV show is basically the OAV done again.
Now that I think of it, I'm not even 100% positive there actually was a Mahout Sky Tai TV.
I'm pretty sure there was.
I got to actually go check.
Yeah, I have to as well.
Anyway, I couldn't really find any exciting news.
Nothing at all?
But I will do Geek Bite instead. And the Geek Bite I will do is not actually a comic or an anime, but is related. And I watched the first episode of that Walking Dead TV show.
I also have seen the first episode. Apparently, my coworkers are watching it they're watching it right along with the BitTorrents.
Yeah, it
departed way away from the comic.
Yeah, the first episode, because I don't really remember, the complete details of the early parts of the comic, but the, this first episode definitely had the same tone and characterizations as the comic.
Yeah.
It definitely felt like, oh yeah, this is definitely Walking Dead zombie world.
Because it had that kind of gritty realism that most zombie things don't really have.
Yeah, and the characters act the way the characters act in Walking Dead, and the zombies act the way they act in Walking Dead, and they also sort of it seemed to me like they muted the colors to it wasn't actually monochrome. But the show definitely felt like it was sort of like they took half the color out.
What's interesting?
So it felt a lot more like the comic, which is monochrome.
Randomly, over the weekend, I watched The Machinist, just a movie that I hadn't watched, and I was bored, and I watched it.
What's it about?
And it's Dostoevsky retold.
Oh, all right.
It's about a guy who hasn't slept in a year and is kind of going crazy, and people.
You go crazy after 3 days.
Yeah, and people are leaving Post-it notes in his apartment, and they have pictures.
No, they're not. He's just going crazy thinking this Post-it notes in his apartment.
Clearly, and it's basically Dostoevsky, Crime and Punishment kind of thing. It's really good, but it did the same thing. It was black and white, but not really. It was black and white, but every now and then, things would be almost color.
The show wasn't actually black and white, but at least it felt like there was some color that was removed.
You sure? Have you watched anything else? You sure your TV's fine?
Yeah, I'm sure my TV's fine. TV is just fine. But basically, yeah, this wasn't a show where it's like, oh man, I gotta watch every episode the day it comes out. It's so awesome. But
I can watch it in the background. It's a show like
this is not it is not one of those travesties where it's like, oh, it ruins all the good from the original. You know, the beginning of The Walking Dead is probably the best part of the comic. And this show is also good in the same way for the same reasons.
Well, like Freaks and Geeks or, Arrested Development, shows that I would never sit down and just watch. But if I'm hanging out, playing a game, I could watch it like while I'm doing stuff.
Yeah. This is a show where it's like if it'll go somewhere in the middle of the queue. It's like if I'm, run out of like the best stuff to watch, it's like, oh.
It's the kind of thing I put on the TV when I'm, mopping or doing all my grown-up stuff.
If it turned bad in a later episode, I would just stop watching it.
Well, bad in the way that the comic gets kind of dumb later, or...
Well, the comic gets dumb and then undumb, and then, it's a very switchy back and forthy thing. The comic also wasn't helped by the changing of artists. The original artist is much better than the artist they switched to. Sorry, to
Though apparently
artists they switched
the
to.
TV show is short, and it's going to end, and they already signed on. They're going to make a sequel, obviously.
Well, a second season.
Yeah.
So, we'll see how it goes.
It seems to be really popular. I'm pretty sure all those actors are going to be big at the New York Comic Con.
If you like a Walking Dead and you like a zombie, or both, or, you should probably read the comic and watch this show.
I'll say this.
They're pretty much equal on the enjoyment level.
Of all the zombie things, other than Night of the Living Dead, the original zombie thing, well, effectively the original zombie thing. There's other zombie things that came before that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's pretty much the best if you want realism and interesting characters.
How about Dawn of the Dead?
Dawn of the Dead was good. It's up there. Close. Might be a tie. But World War Z is nowhere near.
Anyway.
So our friend Mike Toole, he writes stuff for the Anime News Network, among other awesome things. And he does very amazing panels. If you're ever at an anime convention and you see Mike Toole doing anything, just go see it. It'll be hilarious.
Matter what it is.
Even if it doesn't look like you'll like it, trust us. Because if nothing else, he'll just show you stuff that you would never see.
That's generally the trick, is most people don't realize. When you're deciding what panel to go to at a con, don't look at what the panel's about, right? Look at who's doing it.
Yeah, Daryl Surratt, it doesn't matter what he's talking about, it's going to be hilarious.
Yeah, or us, or Mike Toole, or any of the other awesome people.
Yeah. Christian Daly, the old RIT Anime president. But speaking of old RIT Anime, Mike Toole did a recent article that we're actually featured in a little bit. He emailed us and a bunch of other people we know some time ago, and he was like, hey, you guys were big in anime clubs. Tell me a little bit about your old anime clubs. I'm doing an article on them and the current state of them and everything.
So you sent him like a fucking essay.
I sent him like a 5-page.
And he was like, I expected like a paragraph. You guys sent me an essay.
But
it's like, dude, you should know, if you ask us anything, we're gonna give you every piece of information that we've got. We're not gonna hold anything back.
He's like, Rim, how long's your penis? Well, if we measure it in Cartesian coordinates.
Well, let us go down and discuss every molecule from the base to the tip.
By number of zip codes.
It will be 0.00000
times 10 to the 6th.
Times 10 to the negative 79.
It's not as big as Gandalf's
zip code.
The solid 9 inches. But anyway. So, he did this article on anime clubs, and it's really good. He talks about the current state of them and what they were in the past. And if you're an anime fan and you're already on the right track, like you're paying attention to directors and character designers, and you're going to conventions and learning about anime and watching weird old stuff, you're on the right track. But the next step is to actually read articles about anime written by people who know what they're talking about. The books, the articles, the lectures, Fred Schote, all those people. That's the next step.
I think it's shot.
It is shot. I realized that. I was hoping you would just be quiet and let me continue on. And then I was going to edit it out later in post, but no. So this article is fascinating. And as an aside, Scott doesn't think you'd want to hear it. I think you would. We haven't done it in a long time. Should we do a show on RIT Anime and anime clubs?
We already did the show.
I think we should do one.
We already did the show.
Let's see. Listeners.
We don't have a shortage of Wednesday shows.
Listeners, what do you want?
They want whatever Scott doesn't want.
Because I am the candidate who is here for you. Whatever you want.
I'm just going to have to figure out all the shows that I want to do that you don't want to do, and then ask the listeners if
and they'll be like, we don't want to do that. They'll be like, I don't want to hear anything about that.
We'll say.
Except zombies. Zombies are constitutionally banned. Except for pain.
There's a constitution of Geeknights?
There is now.
All right.
But this article really struck me when I read it, and then when I thought about what I'd written.
I haven't read it yet, so I gotta.
And seeing other anime clubs, god damn was the RIT Anime Club awesome. Like, I always thought in my head, like, yeah, that club was crazy awesome, but it was my club. I have a very skewed opinion. Jesus Christ. RIT Anime is like the best anime club ever.
I don't know if it's. Thing is, like, I don't know if it's still what it was. Right? It's like
the last I heard it was. We ran into the publicist.
well,
or the secretary.
I met the librarian, and it sounded like they lost their club space, but he was still keeping the library strong as best he could. But I couldn't get any idea of like how many people were showing, or if they were still doing as many events as bigly and awesomely.
Numbers I got. As an aside, if you look in the comments on Mike's thing, more people mention RIT Anime than any other club. So,
well,
But and a lot of RIT Anime people are out and about doing big stuff, running conventions and everything. But I don't know. I feel like RIT Anime is still pretty strong. The last numbers I heard were they're still pushing 150 or so people a meeting, give or take. I don't know how accurate that is. If any RIT Anime people are listening, you can throw us a bean.
I know that we do have listeners at RIT, at least one. So
if you're not going to the club, go and just go spy.
If you're not going to the club,
go spy.
Just go to it once and tell me what's going on, or tell the president to email us or some shit.
Because
Let's get them on the. Let's actually get the RIT. We should get the RIT Anime Club president on the show. Then we could do a show about Anime Club.
Actually, it would be a fun thing is try to get all the RIT presidents.
As many RIT Anime Club presidents as possible on the show at one time.
I could get 6.
We could probably get. Let's see. You,
Christian Daly,
Scott
me.
Johnson,
Yep.
Lisa, Christian Daly,
Luke, he was technically
Morgan.
president. Technically, Mike Lynn was president for a little while.
But how are we gonna contact Mike Lynn?
I could get contact with him.
We could get Jason Orsatti easily, and I guess Liz.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can get Liz.
I think we can get Liz.
Well, we know
yeah.
the other guy named Scott that we don't really know.
I don't know him, and I don't. But the thing is, Christian Daly might be able to get him, and if he can't, Jason Orsatti might be able to get him.
Yeah.
Plus, I think
How
I
about
still
that?
have.
But I mean, that tells you something about the RIT Anime Club, right? How many people did we just name? Like 10 people, but you're only in college for 4 years, so somehow
the Hall of Kings was remembered.
it's like there are kings from before we were even there, and kings after we left, and we still know them. And they're all connected to each other. That's and some of these people had multi-year reigns. This was not like everyone was in and out situation. Some of these people had very short reigns, though, as well.
Ah, yes, there was political drama. There were kings and despots and revolutions and all that.
The king is dead, and long live the king.
But anyway, check this article out.
King.
And if you're at a convention, keep an eye out for Mike Toole. He's on the good list in our opinion of anime panels.
Wearing MLS soccer jersey. That's how you know who Mike Toole is.
Yeah,
really big.
Yeah,
like whoa, he's tall.
He could crush my head like a watermelon. Anyway, things of the day. So I like anime openers. Like there was a time before I had access to a lot of anime, and before there was YouTube or BitTorrent or anything like that, I would go to sites and download AVIs or MPEGs of the openers to anime that were not available in the US.
Yeah, I mean, there are still some shows where I've only ever seen the opener. I've never seen the show. And
in fact,
like that weird fucked up Pokemon-ish thing.
Oh, right, Jibaku.
Yeah, what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
I'm sure we could find out what it is now.
I do know what this story was with that. Or like Eretz Vaju that we found out later was actually a shitty fighting game.
A shitty fighting game that had a different name in the US.
Yep.
They actually had a used copy at a GameStop that we didn't buy.
Yeah.
It's actually the shittiest fighting game in the world, but the best opener and opening song in the world.
That opener, I was like, this anime is so up my alley.
I mean, but it's a fighting anime, but goddamn, was that a good opener.
I think the song was primarily what made it a good opener.
Yeah, that's
most
of what an opener is the song.
Kind of like Tenchi Muyo GXP.
Oh, God.
That was the best
opener to the worst show. I mean, if you took opener quality to show quality ratios, Tenchi Muyo GXP is the highest ever.
I mean, the only thing that might possibly beat it is Noir.
No, because Noir is a much better show than Tenchi Muyo GXP.
Yeah, you're right. And
the opener is not as good as the Tenchi Muyo GXP opener.
You're right. Nuns with guns, lava, no blood. One woman with a pistol takes out like 80 guys in an open field. That show wasn't stupid. But Tenchi Muyo, the worst thing is...
I'm not saying Noir was a good show. I'm just saying it was better. It's like comparing two poops. Which is the least smelly poop?
You know what's great? You know GXP was bad, but the worst part is, not only was it bad, but none of the characters that the fanboys even wanted to see are in that goddamn thing for like the first half.
Is it better or worse than Photon?
I don't know. I put them in the same category of unwatchable. It's like the Untouchables.
They're basically the same. They're basically the same thing, right?
Yeah, untouchable.
I don't know. They might be unlookable.
So anyway, this is simply we have those things we show at anime cons or whenever we need to like fill a room or kill some time of every robot anime opener in contiguous order.
Oh, I love that. We should watch.
This is that for anime that aren't robot shows, but interestingly enough,
some of them are robot shows.
It's really short, and you'll see why, because it's every anime opener ever.
It is every anime opener ever.
It's great. Just, it was good. The part when it just starts panning up to someone's face and then into the sky. That was the best part.
That's a good part. Or I like the part where people are running to the left.
Yep. Or the subtle one where it's
or
a
the
bunch
birds, different birds, more birds.
Well,
birds,
there's two
birds,
different kinds of birds. There's like the one seagull flying out over the ocean, and then there's the flock of birds taking flight.
There's the drop of water. Drop of water, drop of water, drop of water, drop of water.
The teardrops go sideways from a woman as she turns her head.
Yeah.
Or the
the head turning. Head turn to look at the camera. Head turn to look at the camera. Head turn.
The subtlest one was the zoom in shakily on an action scene.
Oh, that's a good one.
Because that's recent. Not many old anime did that.
Yeah. Anyway, so check this out, right? Some guy, you know how some people would like take The Shining and then they would make it look like it was a feel-good movie?
Except between the hours of 2 and 4?
Yeah.
That's Willie's Time.
Willie's Time.
The most quotable episode of The Simpsons ever.
Right. Basically,
also a movie.
What these people did here, or maybe one person did, is they took Akira, the movie, right, and they took some music. I'm not sure exactly what music it is, but it's very is it?
Yeah.
It's very familiar. Are you sure it's not Final Fantasy music?
Yes.
All right.
That's Lapta.
I feel like there's a Final Fantasy song that's very similar. Anyway.
It's kind of similar.
They took the Lapta music and they took Akira and they put them together, and it's Akira X Ghibli, so it looks like Akira was a Ghibli movie.
You know what this gives me? The Ghiblis.
The Ghibli. Anyway, it's pretty good, and it serves many purposes, like reminding you that Akira is amazing. And lol, look at that, they made Akira look like Ghibli. And if you've seen Akira, it's like double lol, because you know what's actually going on in that scene versus what this sort of fake trailer would imply is going on in that scene. And it's like, the double rainbow.
Speaking of the Ghiblis, before we get to the meta moment, I just want to point out, you should go on YouTube and watch all the cutscenes from Poker Night at the Inventory as a show. It's basically like a half-hour animated show.
Think of it as an anime. Don't think of it as a game, right? I bought the game because it was like $5, right?
I watched it on YouTube. Does that mean I pirated it?
I don't know. But basically, right, it's all you do in this game is play poker. But
all you do in this game is watch the heavy, tiny heavy.
You play poker with Strongbed, the heavy, Tycho from Penny Arcade, and this, is it Max from Sam & Max, I think?
You've never played a Sam & Max game, have you?
No, not
You
really.
have no idea. Actually, he, I think, is the weakest link in this show.
Yeah,
he has a good shtick of he only has one trick. But they use the shtick a little too much.
Yeah, but basically, you're playing poker with these 4 guys who are fictional characters, and they're very funny. They're very funny until they start repeating the same joke over and over again.
And then you're done.
And it's basically a single-player poker game that, it just goes on forever with nothing else really going on. So you might as well, the only reason to play it is for the jokes. So watch all the jokes on YouTube, and then you're done.
Just when Heavy keeps calling Strong bad, Tiny Heavy, like there's something about that.
I don't know. That's pretty good.
So, without any further ado, the meta moment.
Let's try not to forget any things.
All right, for anyone who hasn't paid attention, the Geeknights store has one item for sale. Our original t-shirt. We will have new stuff relatively soon, but don't hold your breath because you'll die.
Yep. There was something to correct from a previous Wednesday episode. I wanted to make a correction, but I forgot what we got wrong. But we did get something wrong, and we will correct it.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Really.
You're not just... We're going to be at MagFest. We're part of the Mag9. We're going to be on 2 discussion panels with the Mag9, other gaming intellectuals. We're also going to be doing a panel called, I forget which panel we're doing. Losing Should Be Fun, I think, is the one we're doing. It's a good panel.
I'd rather do a different one.
It's a good panel.
Whatever. MagFest will mostly be a party anyway.
Yep, PAX East will be very likely will be at Anime Boston.
PAX East is in 100 days.
99 days.
Fuck.
We're going to be at Anime Boston most likely. We'll see if we'll be at Otakon. I'm going to put this out there right now. We've never been denied in like a decade panels at Otakon. Every year since 2002, we've done one or more. One year we did like 7.
Well, we denied them last year just because they didn't get the schedule to us on time. And
So
it was too much
2002,
hassle.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
So they
9.
They might legitimately deny us because we denied them, and they'll be like, "Oh, those guys are now unreliable," so then we're going to deny them.
I just want to get it out here now. It'll be very telling as to how
Which they can do if they want. I don't care.
they can.
And if they don't, then if they get the schedule out on time, then we'll go.
Thing is, it wasn't even the panel schedule. It was our own staff schedule was what we were waiting on.
Yeah, right.
But basically, I just get this out here now because we're gonna, if we're gonna submit our panels to Otakon like we do every year, and our panels have never failed to fill the room. So we'll see if Otakon wants us to do panels or not. If we don't appear at Otakon, it is not because we are not willing to do panels.
No, it's because something they did not do enough.
Yeah, and if you have any strong feelings about that, let appropriate people know, I guess.
And if you want to say, well, why should they do anything for you? It's like, well, look at what PAX does for us.
Yeah.
And so everyone else, Anime Boston does more for us than anyone else. They do more for us than PAX. So Otakon just has to step up.
Also, as another kind of, I'm curious, listeners out there, let me know if you've been to, like, whenever Katsucon happens again, because we stopped going to Katsucon when all the staff we knew quit, and the con had a lot of trouble.
No, we're also going to Zenkai-Con. When's that?
Oh, yeah, fuck, I don't even know. It's in my calendar.
Yeah.
We'll be at Zenkai-Con doing a bunch of panels. I don't even know which ones. It'll be fine.
Was it November? I feel like do we miss it?
I'm pretty sure if we missed it, the staff would have said something.
I think
like,
so.
where are you guys?
I seem to just remember it's supposed to be November, but I guess it has to be wrong.
If my phone starts ringing and someone's like, guys, your panel's in like 20 minutes, where are you? And I'll be like, New York.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I don't remember anything. Oh, book club is
All right.
World
So,
War Z.
World War Z was the book club. We're going to do that review as soon as we do a Thursday episode. And the next book club book, which we've already announced, I'll keep announcing, is Michio Kaku's Hyperspace, which is a book about reality.
Great.
Good book. What's wrong with you?
It's not exactly fun.
Actually, it's really fun.
No.
You don't even know what it's about.
I'm going to counter with some fun.
You're going to counter with some fun? Because for every counter of fun you have, I have a counter.
Of unfun. Anyway.
You keep pushing, you're reading Ulysses.
You don't want to read that shit.
No, I don't want to read Ulysses.
Okay,
So, because it's her favorite movie, and being an animator, she has some expertise.
It's really a favorite movie?
It's not my favorite
It's one of your
favorite
favorites.
movie.
It's
a
on my
movie
list.
I like a lot.
It is
a mo-
definitely on my list of movies that, like, it's in my top 50 of movies, I think.
And-
Top 100 of movies.
And we were going to do this show together like a way long time ago, like a month ago. But because of a crashing Maya and various other problems, I was way late and I only caught the tail end. And then I had a phone meeting with Taiwan. So the show was postponed until a later date because I said, you guys can't do it without me. I have to be there for the Roger
even
Rabbit
now-
And
show."
it's postponed even later because we're recording this ahead of time while we're going to be at MagFest.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
well,
so
we
this
can't tell
is-
them that. They'll think-
Well, now they know the
Okay.
secret.
Oh, no.
Oh,
The magic of
no.
radio has been ruined.
But at least they will not have any strange questions about, like, why is the news so old?
It's
And
anime
I'm pretty
news.
sure one of the things of the day is a repeat thing of the day.
We'll find
You keep
out.
saying that,
I
but
think
But-
it is.
I mean, what anime news did we even talk about? I have to go find out and then make this post.
That's right.
So we're talking about a movie from 1988, an animated, well, half-animated movie, Who Framed Roger
So,
Rabbit.
we were 6 years old, but Emily was what, like 2?
I didn't see it in the theaters. I think
I didn't either.
saw it. I must have been maybe about 7 or 8, and I saw it on VHS at my aunt's house. And I remember, it's very strange thinking back on my first impressions of the movie because I remember it being a lot scarier. Because I was like 7. I hadn't seen a ton of film noir detective.
Oh, Judge
movies
Doom
or
at the end
anything.
and the dip scared the ever-living crap out of me.
The dip was awful.
It was a
And
little bit scary.
There was this one part, the part where they're torturing the shoe with the dip, and I was like, oh, this is awful. It's like horrible acid shit. I hate it. I was so scared of that when I was a little kid. And then, like, once I became older, I realized that it was all a joke. Like, that dip was turpentine, and that's what they used to clean the cells off. So it's
Clever
like,
girl.
See, I
I
want to
was
know.
like,
I
see
knew
how-
that
why
was what
that.
they clean the cells off with. But I'm like, why would you clean off the cell? It's like you just drew the art on it.
And then they
Well,
reused them.
Yeah, it's because
no,
you
you need to.
That's
save
why we don't
some.
have cells from old Disney stuff.
Yeah.
No.
Well, if they wanted to save money, especially on low budget productions, they would just keep using cells. And
I
actually,
mean, how
on
much does a
really-
cell cost?
I don't know, but they add up. Think of how many frames makes your typical animated movie, and
No.
Especially
you
if it's animated
multiply
on
that-
twosies.
I mean, I could understand it. I could
Twosies.
understand if you like, erase like the cell of the guy's really tiny and far away. But if it's like the cell of like he's right up
I
there.
think wasn't it a lot like with old TV shows where they just they didn't think there was any value to
Yeah,
them
they
after the
checked
fact.
out Doctor Who, and so there's all these lost
Well,
episodes.
think about how
that
many
we'll
like
never
live
find
radio
again.
programs were not recorded in any way, shape, or form because
Yeah.
they just broadcasted some guys with microphones and then that was it.
Well, back then, I think they didn't even anticipate that there would be a secondary market for things on tape or on digital media. I mean, there wasn't any digital media, and so they figured, well, we'll have prints of the film, but we don't actually need to go back and reshoot the film or scan it in because, that hadn't been invented yet. They couldn't have known
Yeah,
that
but I
in
mean,
the future the
even-
cells would turn out to be useful.
Yeah, but even like, regardless of, the technology that's available, it's like, there was just no set. It's like they hadn't learned the lessons of any of the previous centuries of that you must put effort into preserving the art or it will
It
go
seems like that's a
away.
relatively recent movement.
And also, I think
Museums are pretty old.
I think part of it is like television and animation and stuff, it wasn't necessarily viewed as a fine art, but as cheap entertainment. So it was more an assembly line production than actually, the feeling of an artist before his canvas.
Well, I mean, look at like old comic books. They were fighting comic books. They weren't going to put them in the museums.
No, at least
Yeah.
nowadays we seem to have mostly, at least not completely, but mostly learned the lesson. People are already trying to save the video game.
Well, and with the digital society, preservation is a lot easier, whereas back
it's
in the
not
day,
as easy as you think. It
Well,
seems
yeah, 'cause-
easier in the short term, but in the long term, it is much more difficult.
I think it
we
is
were
easier
just
in one
talking about
regard.
emulation
It takes
and stuff
mental
like that.
effort and expertise, but it doesn't require as much physical space and investment like film. Unrolling it in those long tubes.
Yeah. Anyway,
Sometimes.
let's talk about this movie.
Oh, yes. Okay. But part of the thing, talking about Roger Rabbit is very difficult if you leave out talking about animation history, because what the movie is, I mean, on the surface level, it functions as a really fun mystery movie. Like, is definitely in the style of old black and white film noir.
Well, it's funny,
it's
as a
got
kid-
the alcoholic hero who's kind of down and out.
And I have this with a lot, like, Project A-ko and a lot of things I've seen. I thought, like, as a kid, I didn't quite get that they were comedies. They had funny moments, but I took them kind of straight up at face value. And Roger Rabbit was the same way. I remember just getting into it as a mystery movie, and it didn't really dawn on me that this was partly a comedy.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't completely understand it, when I was very young.
I didn't
It
get any
wasn't-
of those jokes about
it-
Jack Daniels.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many stuff in there that reminds me a lot of the same stuff that Powerpuff Girls used to do, where you would tell dirty jokes, but kids wouldn't get them.
Yeah, it's
You
like
know?
all the more adult stuff.
It's like it's just right in there and so obvious.
It's called dual address, and I learned about this in one of my classes when we were talking about Aladdin. But dual address is when you have a thing that speaks to both children and adults, but on different levels. So
like when Mojo Jojo was in jail and this really big guy standing next to him. and
Why,
that was
why
the end of
is
the episode.
prison rape always your go-to example of this?
Because I just
know.
remember that Mojo Jojo
but
getting raped
it's
in the
true. And
prison.
what's the one? Liberty Meadows. It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
that guy, and luckily he ended up going into independent comics so he could draw all the big-titted women he wanted without having to worry about newspaper censorship.
Thing is, he
But
draws a fine,
he
big-titted
does.
woman.
He's
got
really,
art
really
skill,
good
as opposed to
at
some of those
draftsmanship.
fantasy artists that with the chainmail
Just a woman
bikinis.
straddling a sword
yeah,
snake.
Right? It's like,
But
fuck that
anyway,
shit.
like Frank Cho, back when he was doing newspaper comics, he'd always try to slip things in, that were the strip was supposedly family friendly, but sometimes it would get a little secretly raunchy,
Mm.
But with Roger Rabbit, it's funny. Like I said, the dip was just one thing that I didn't understand because it was animation lingo. And
I thought it was just scary, like
Yeah.
like some sort of scary acid.
well, that's what I thought
Yeah.
too, and I'm freaked out by acid scenes anyway. I'm like, they killed us. Oh, the poor shoe.
that poor shoe didn't.
Yeah,
he was one of
he
the
was
only
just hanging
fatalities.
out.
All right, we got to
yeah.
do a Photoshop of that scene where it's Kuribo shoe that goes in the dip.
I'd feel too bad. They're so
Yeah.
rare.
Yeah, it would be such a waste.
You can just play
know?
that level over and over again. You get infinite Kuribo shoes.
So I'm gonna assume we don't really need to worry about spoilers because the movie came out in 1988.
Yeah, seriously, if you haven't watched it, like what the hell?
I
If you have
was-
not seen this movie, go out and watch it right now, and then come back and listen to the rest of this.
definitely,
You're at
you
about the
know,
37-ish minute mark.
yeah.
Yeah.
But some of the things that I always thought were really weird when I was a little kid, and I mean, they're still really weird, but the fact that the femme fatale is like married to Roger.
I
and
love that.
It's just
Yeah.
kind of inexplicable, but like, you expect, Mrs. Rabbit to be a rabbit, and she's not a rabbit. She's a very alluring cartoon songstress.
I do love that scene where he's sitting there and he's all like, rabbit, whatever. And then she comes out and he just kind of jaw drops.
Yeah.
Mm.
But
I
so
did
I
not
like
realize
the patty cake scene.
how
It
they're
was like
actually
they're
playing
playing
cake.
patty cake and they're actually playing patty cake.
I like how they animate the patty cake with the pictures. I wonder if that
Yeah.
was very much intentional.
Well, I'm sure it was
Everything
very
was
much
intentional.
intentional. Come
But
on,
it-
you can't
well,
have.
except for what was that scene, Emily, you were telling us about where he was looking at the wrong
Oh,
place?
that was funny. Animation aside, there's this book by Richard Williams called The Animator's Survival Kit. And if you want to get into animation at all, that's like your primer. That's the #1 textbook you should get. It covers all the basics. And he also has some really funny anecdotes because Richard Williams was the animation director on Roger Rabbit. And there's this one scene where the actor who played, what's the main character's name? I forget. But he was very good at maintaining the imagined eye contact with the cartoon because what they do is they'd film the actors and then print out every frame of the movie, and then the animators would animate over it, and then they'd photograph it like a background with a cell overlay, like an animated film.
What's
and,
interesting is how it really holds up.
Yeah, it's
Like it looks
Well, I mean,
great.
In some
It works
scenes,
really
like it's like,
well.
whoa, that's pretty good skills even for today, right? Like in the scene where like Jessica Rabbit's pulling on his tie, you're
Yeah,
like, whoa, look
yeah.
at that. How they,
yeah.
that's pretty good even
They
for
had like
2010.
little
But it-
mechanical gadgets and stuff. Like
Yeah.
when he
but
when
there'd
he
be
spits
other
water
scenes
out,
though, like there was the scene where all the weasels bust into his office, and there's these guns that are just comically floating around. It's like, did you take a a nap?
I don't
or
know, those looked
anything?
okay. They didn't look that bad.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah.
It was not as good as.
But I
some
mean,
of the
overall,
other,
the movie looks better than a lot of CG
it
movies from
really
the last
does,
decade.
you
And I mean,
know?
and while there were plenty of other movies before and since that have done the animation live action combination, it's like nobody's really done the same, kind of.
No one's done it well. Cool World was like another attempt that doesn't really hold up
No.
nearly
I don't
as
know.
well.
I've seen clips of Cool World. I didn't actually see it because my parents saw it and they were like,
It's okay, but as a kid, I kind of want to watch it again because Brad Pitt's a really good actor, and
it's
I
on-
imagine he's really good in it.
Ralph Bakshi for me is really hot and cold. Like some of Bakshi's stuff I like, and some of it is just like really, I don't know, smutty for the sake of being smutty. I don't know. Sometimes Bakshi's stuff is kind of
Yeah.
classy.
But anyway, it seems like
Okay.
nowadays, right? I'm seeing a trend of like this sort of opposite, right? Like I saw this trailer when I went to see Tron for this like Disney's Mars Needs Moms, and it was like
oh God!
it was like
Actually,
real people, but in a whole CG animated world.
No,
and I was like, it's
that's
the backwards.
not real people.
It looks like real
That's
people.
motion capture. I can't believe you thought those were real people.
I
I,
know,
think
it-
they're creepy.
It looked like real
soulless
people,
mocha-
like at least real faces were used, for the whatever.
Strangely
Maybe
enough,
you've made it past the uncanny valley, and the rest of us haven't yet.
But it said it was
enough.
from the directors or the people who made Polar Express. It wasn't
And
Polar Express the same thing where it was
it
real
was-
people.
No,
and,
that Polar Express was like all animation and weird looking.
I don't know.
It is.
They
Mars
did motion
Needs
capture
Moms.
of Tom Hanks.
Mars Needs Moms is the exact same process, the exact same producers, and actually, strange as it is, I believe it's Zemeckis, right?
I don't know.
Who did it? It wasn't he involved with Roger Rabbit?
Yeah, he was the director of the live action part.
Yeah. So he's still around making, live action animation kind of combinations, but they're not as cool and they're really creepy and strange.
But anyway, there's the scene that we were talking about.
Oh yeah. So anyway, the lead actor, he was supposed to be making eye contact with Roger Rabbit, who was shorter than he was, but he screwed up, and they didn't catch it until they had sent the footage over to the animation department. They're like, "Damn, Roger has to be up in the air if we're gonna have eye contact in this scene." So they like stretched him out against the wall, like on his tippy toes for no reason. They're like, well, he's neurotic, it might work. And so there's this one scene where Roger's just like inching up the wall, and you're like, what is he doing? But it was because they had a mistake they had to cover up. So various little things, but you don't notice it unless you know about him, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So they got Bob Hoskins to play Eddie Valiant, but apparently, you know who the number one choice was? Harrison Ford.
Really?
They
That
just
would've
couldn't
been
afford
funny.
him.
Well, actually, I think...
And Bill Murray, too, but he didn't
Yeah.
respond.
All right.
I think the casting worked out really well.
I think Eddie Valiant was a good
Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
Though, being an adult, I did not notice how much they hammer down the point that he is an alcoholic. He is drinking.
Yeah, I
in
didn't notice that
every
at all
goddamn scene.
until the most recent viewing. I didn't notice that, and it wasn't until 2 viewings ago, after learning about it in college, that I realized that it was about the
Cloverleaf thing.
Yeah, the conspiracy to get rid of all the trains and the buses, right? Because that's something that really happened, right?
Yeah, I didn't
You know,
know about
they
that.
bought all the streetcar. That's the reason that we don't have trolleys, except for tourist reasons in this country anymore, is because, GM, whoever, they bought all of them, they shut them down, they replaced them with buses, and they purposefully made bus schedules shitty with shitty routes so that everyone would buy a
Would get
car. And that's why
cars.
the United States
What's
is
funny
full
is
of
think about the
cars.
nice subtle social commentary of the crazy guy at the end. I kind of avoiding spoilers, I guess, who's like, imagine it, a road with people driving and a freeway. I'll call it a freeway. And
Well, the funniest
Eddie
thing
Valiant's
is...
just like, you're crazy.
Well, and there's multiple scenes where they show him using the streetcar, kids sitting on the back of it,
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff to show you, like, hey, this.
I
and
love also
also-
notice how he gets a cigarette from that like 13-year-old kid.
Also, it's kind of funny too because the evil guy is trying to make freeways, and you realize it's set in L.A. So everybody in L.A. hates the freeways because they're insane. I mean, Los Angeles, the traffic there is
everyone
nuts.
there drives, and
Yeah.
a lot of LA
Well,
people
'cause
come to
there's
New York, insist
no-
on driving, even if the subway's there.
Well, there's no alternatives in LA. They don't have
They
a
got nothing.
robust subway system
they got
or
rid of it.
anything. Yeah, exactly. And that's what the subplot of this movie is about. It's about animation history. It's a film noir, and it's also a social commentary about the history.
Three kinds.
Cut it out.
And I like some of the film noir tropes, like some of the lines where it's just like, Eddie, is that a rabbit in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me, instead of, is that a gun in your pocket?
One of my favorite scenes is just that little shave and a haircut.
Haircut.
Do.
And they can't not do it.
Actually, what was really fun to watch was the Angry Video Game Nerd Cinemassacre review of Roger Rabbit. That's what reminded me of this movie.
I didn't see that. I only saw his review of the game.
Because
which was
oh my
terrible.
god.
I actually played the game before I ever saw the movie.
Did you call the phone number?
No, I didn't.
Well,
get,
the phone
you know,
number now goes to a sex line.
No kidding.
I
Yeah.
played the game with like a FAQ, and it just went to that.
I tried to play the game legit. As a result, I never beat it.
Yeah, I just played it with the FAQ that I happen to have.
But Also,
so.
it was weird that as a kid, I remember like really not understanding how they got Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and Daffy Duck.
I didn't understand
and
how
Bugs
they
Bunny
did that either.
And
when I was a
everybody.
kid.
I remember as a kid, I was like, so did like who made this movie? 'Cause
I didn't
know.
understand
I
either.
didn't know either.
So what's the story behind that? I actually don't know that aspect.
Oh,
How they
Do
got
you know, or you just?
No,
you know?
it amazed me. I don't know. I'm like reading through IMDb and the Wikipedia.
So you still don't know. You didn't. You just tried to mention it without looking it up before.
No, I mean I
Yeah.
thought it was awesome. Like as a kid, it really stood out that like Mickey Mouse and
is.
Bugs Bunny hung
it
out
makes
together.
me wonder, like, how come people can't figure this shit out
Well,
more
the
often?
best I can see is that they got Spielberg to do all this stuff, and they went into this movie thinking, all right, this is our chance to make a super blockbuster.
Well, it
Yeah.
wasn't a super block.
But
Well, they
like,
wanted it to
did
be.
Did they have to pay for the rights, or did they get permission? I mean, I understand that there must have been, some sort of legal powwow going on between the companies.
All
and
the
movie
legal stuff I can
studios,
find talk about the sequel that didn't happen and not paying the guy who wrote the book.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you
I didn't
know
know
it
there
was
was a
based
book.
on a
It's
book?
called Who Censored Roger Rabbit? Yep.
Yeah.
Gary K. Wolf, I'd never heard of.
Oh, so the book came first?
Yep.
Wow. Is the
Yep.
book the same story?
No, it's actually really different. I haven't read it, but I mean, it plays out like a mystery. It's 1940s, 1930s era, and other than that, I really don't know. Apparently, it's a very strange book.
Sure.
But
One point though, Mickey Mouse, kind of a dick.
oh, they're all dicks. When
He's
he's
like,
No,
falling
Bugs
off
Bunny
he
is
the
might
the
die.
biggest dick.
The worst one is Tweety. And Tweety I hate in the cartoons too, but Tweety when he's like, "Oh look, little piggies." You're like,
Well, I mean,
"Hi, Tweety."
if people, you don't think about it too much when you're watching a lot of the old, cartoons, because some of them, right, give you a reason for someone to get the shit kicked out of him. Like Wile E. Coyote doesn't fall off the cliff until he's trying to eat the Roadrunner, right?
Yeah, it's
You know,
kind of like karmic
And Bugs
retribution.
Bunny's only, most of the time, it's like Elmer Fudd tries to shoot him first.
Yeah, but
Or
sometimes he just
But
finds a random dude and
sometimes-
tortures him.
sometimes he's just an asshole.
Oh, but like
for
it's,
no reason.
No, I don't know. Most of the time
Like-
with Bugs, it's like they cross him one time and then he spends the rest of the episode extracting his revenge.
Right, but I mean,
It's, like,
sometimes they don't
way
even cross him at
overreaction.
all. Sometimes it's just like, oh, you're singing opera. All right, that's
I'm
annoying.
going
No,
to torture
no.
you half to death.
The opera singer, he hit him with a thing, and then Bugs is always like, "This means war," and then
That happens sometimes, but not all
Bugs
the
Bunny
time.
should have just called the police and been like, "This guy hit me.
this guy assault and
He's
battery.
hiding in the stove."
Hiding in the
That's-
stove, eh?
I haven't seen that one in years,
the
and
best
that's my
one.
favorite one.
That's the best one
The
ever.
Mugsy. There were a couple with the thugs, weren't there?
No, there was the one where he's hiding in the stove,
And
and
there's
the other
I don't
one.
know how he's done it, but I know he's done it.
That's the other one.
And the one where they're in the factory, is that one?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the second one. Because one they're in the
Pretty
house on the
silly.
cliff, and one they're in the factory or something.
You know which one I want to find again is the one where there's the dog who falls in love with the lawn ornament dog, and then she gets turned into a bomb.
I don't know that one.
You don't remember that one? It was one of those wartime cartoons, and they used to play it on the Cartoon Network.
Vaguely.
And
Maybe
it
if
was
I
so
saw it, I
sad,
might
and like
remember
it
it.
showed the assembly line making a bomb, and this lawn ornament dog gets melted down to be a missile.
Hmm.
Anyway, so Roger Rabbit, like the end scenes are when the animator's talent really shines through, where you've got so many different kinds of characters from the golden era of
a lot of them I
animation.
didn't even recognize.
Well, some of them like
I saw
were
some like
really
Max Fleischer
early.
looking stuff in
Yeah,
there.
there
I
was
saw
like-
some stuff I didn't recognize, like a weird cow, but there was some stuff I totally recognized, like the totally hot harp. I was like, oh shit, there's the
Yeah,
harp.
the
What's
Scott
up?
loves that harp.
He was like, yeah, it's the harp. And we're like, you got a thing for that harp, don't you?
Who doesn't have a thing for the harp?
She
Gay
said,
guys, that's who.
"My, what a lovely day.
That's right.
Yep, that's that harp. Anyway,
That
Dude,
harp
so
likes to play
apparently-
with herself.
And they
Charles
had
Fleischer, who
the-
did the
That's
voice
hot.
of Roger Rabbit, for many of the scenes, he would just dress up in a rabbit costume
really
and
just
stand
getting
there,
character?
just kind of bothering people and
Did you
being
hear
the
my joke about the
character.
harp
Oh my
playing with
God.
herself?
I'd love to see a video of that. Scott loves watching the harp play with himself.
That's right.
And they had like the some really early stuff, like the trees, flowers in the trees.
Yeah, I'd
The
never
first
seen that
color.
before.
I've seen. I actually may not have seen it either. I know I've seen tons of clips of it, so I recognized it, but I'm not sure if I've seen the whole thing. But yeah, it's like there's this whole big parade of like 100 probably cartoon characters, and just
Because
really
they're not really in it
celebration.
that much, and I think that's part of the reason why it was allowed, right, for
Yeah.
them to be in there. Is because like they weren't like playing major roles. It was like you could have even almost called it fair use. They were in there for such a small.
That was
amount of
definitely
time.
homage and not anything more direct.
Yeah, well, it's like none of the main characters were established cartoon characters, but they were very much based in the tradition of these cartoon characters.
Yeah.
Like, Roger Rabbit has a lot of, what's his name, Woody the Woodpecker or whatever.
Yeah.
Kind of annoying, madcap adventure sort of
I
personality.
like Roger though.
And he's got a little bit of
endearing.
bugs, but he doesn't have, he's a lot more wacky. He doesn't have that kind of sardonic goofiness about him. But there.
I mean, it was a solid plot. It's a great movie. I love the opening cartoon and how it segues right into the movie.
Oh yeah, and people don't realize one cool thing about the opening cartoon that actually killed a lot of the budget for the movie.
Yeah, the animation on that is
Yeah,
like
it's
way
like if
better
you
than even stuff you see
actually-
today.
If you actually look at it, it's like it's a nod to the old cartoons, but it's got a lot of polish on it that an old Warner Brothers cartoon wouldn't have. Like there's reflections in the floor, and there's crazy like
Yeah,
perspective
it's like that must have been animated by hand
animation
too,
and
but it
all
right?
by
But
hand.
it's-
I will wager that the animators
like
who
the
got to work on that
computer.
either loved it that they got to work on something so awesome or hated it because they had to draw all
Like,
those
that is, like,
reflections.
probably
Oh,
one
I
of
don't
the-
know. I think animators like it when they're given free reign to do.
But
do
I've seen
awesome
like a lot of
stuff.
animation in my days from many countries, and
the-
it's like, you know, in terms of the stuff that is done by hand, it's like,
Like it's
you know,
something
I
with
guess
Akira.
Akira is better than that, but
Yeah.
not much else, right?
However,
in terms
what-
of just the quality.
What
I
just
mean,
really showcases the potential of animation for crazy exaggeration. Like, you know, there's just a lot of, crazy foreshortening and squashing and stretching and all these dynamic effects, which, so just by showing you and reminding you this is what animation can do, and then putting these characters in the real world where these things don't necessarily apply, it kind of highlights the differences.
Oh, I
between
didn't even
them.
know this. Mel Blanc, actually, this was the last film he worked on. He did the voices of all his characters
No
mhm.
kidding.
in the movie.
How about that?
Yeah.
And then he died the next year.
Oh.
He didn't do Daffy Duck. Apparently, that was too physically exerting to do,
Yeah.
which makes sense.
But there's like those scenes like there
I
was
forgot-
Daffy Duck and Donald Duck playing the piano back to back.
That scene is
Yeah.
brilliant.
And they're like bitching at each other, and Daffy's like, I can't understand what this guy's saying, you know.
There's a lot of weird little scenes I forgot about that I'd kind of suddenly remembered when we watched it again. Like all these little asides where cartoon characters are just doing stuff in the background.
Stuff in the background, right? And like, you know, you'll walk outside the studio and then Dumbo flies across.
And the
you know,
best
it's
thing
just
is,
little
he works for
things.
peanuts.
That's right.
But it's pretty good. I really do. It's not my favorite movie, but I really do like that movie. And it's one of those films that I get really nostalgic about. Kind of like,
I think I think it's sort of been kind of forgotten-ish. Like it hasn't been completely forgotten, but it's not something that people think about often. You know, because it was popular at the time, popular enough to get a Nintendo game even. But
It's the
then,
35th highest grossing animated film ever in the world.
yeah, but then it sort of faded afterwards, and it never really came back up or was reminded of or had any big merchandising or any of these.
there was a
sorts of-
lot of talk. They tried to make sequels and they all fell through. and-
even things
Well,
like
it's
like
just
Aladdin you
pointless.
mentioned earlier, right? Like Aladdin had a TV series at one point. and-
Aladdin had
Yeah.
like 3 DVD or
most
VHS
Disney
movies, too.
movies do. Like
Yeah,
Lion King
like a lot
had
of these
stuff,
a lot of these
and-
other animated properties have these long tails, and even pretty much any huge movie sort of has a long tail to it, either in the form of sequels or books or merch or something, right? These big successful properties have long tails, but Roger Rabbit had no long tail. It was just here
well,
it
he's
is
a rabbit.
and the end.
Ha, ha,
and that
ha,
was it.
ha.
Done, right?
He's a rabbit. He has a short tail.
All right, but
Hmm.
so because of that, I mean, people remember it exists, but I mean, it was from the late '80s, so a lot of people who are way younger than us never even saw it ever, right? Might not even know it exists at all.
Yeah.
And then even people, if they didn't see it then, you might say, "Oh yeah, that was that thing that was animated and also live action," and that's all they remember.
Well, at the same time, maybe it's just the crowd I run with, but I think that people who have an interest in, like, I don't know, cinema history, like the famous movies over time, that's one that's remembered kind of like Star Wars is remembered for both technical expertise and that it did something different. I mean, other movies had combined live action and animation before, but not nearly to the effect, with the quality that Roger Rabbit was able to achieve. And also, I think it's partly because I hang around with animators and they're always
Yeah.
like gushing about Roger Rabbit. So not everybody's forgotten this film.
No. But it's not something that you hear people talk about just in normal in the.
No, I
in the
think it's having a
regular world.
comeback just because after I saw the Cinemassacre thing, I was like, oh, I should watch this. And I didn't have it. So, of course, BitTorrent, because it's not in the Netflix streaming. and there were a ton of people seeding it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was due to that or just people are always seeding it.
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I think a lot of stuff from the 80s and early 90s is starting to come back on a nostalgia wave. You know, I
Yeah, I mean, it
see
was
a
the early
lot
80s
of
stuff before,
nostalgia
right? It was all the
from our
He-Man.
generation.
You know, we went through He-Man, Ninja Turtles, and Voltron, right? So now we're coming up to the later, and soon the 90s stuff will be coming back again, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Ninja Turtles was actually
I wonder if
90s-ish.
they'll have Captain Planet.
I'm sure that's already. I saw
Yeah,
Captain
that's
Planet
what I
cosplayer this
remembered
year.
from. Really, that's what
Yeah.
I remembered from my little days.
Well, there's the
was
new My
Captain
Little
Planet.
Ponies show that apparently
It's
is pretty
supposedly
good.
really good.
I saw part of it. It really reminds me of those old cartoons. It definitely
Well,
harkens
that's
back
because
to like
it's done by
Dexter's
Craig
Lab era.
McCracken's wife, who worked on Powerpuff Girls and some other shows.
Makes sense.
So it's a Cartoon Network kind of thing.
It the character designs, just the general dynamic of the show. It feels like those '90s cartoons. It's very fun.
Mm.
But
Anyway, so yeah, if you haven't seen it, you should probably go see it.
Yeah, Roger Rabbit, if you decided to keep listening to the show and haven't seen it yet, go see it. There are worse movies you could see.
definitely,
A lot worse movies you could see.
it would be fun.
And even if you're old, you know.
This has been Geek Nights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music, Kat Lee for web design, and Brando K for the logos.
Be sure to visit our website at frontrowcrew.com for show notes, discussion, news, and more.
Remember, Geek Nights is not one, but 4 different shows. Sci-Tech Mondays, Gaming Tuesdays, Anime Comic Wednesdays, and Indiscriminate Thursdays.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.
Woo woo.
Giga. Think of it, that's the Giga Putty. All right, Mega Giga. What's the Terra Putty?
Hexa, Peta.
Peta Putty.
Putty
That sounds like
hard.
a
Okay.